This video examines the Nat Turner 1831 Rebellion trial, a key event in the history of American slavery and resistance. The case involved defendant Nat Turner, charged with conspiracy to rebel and making insurrection in 1831 at the Southampton County Court. This local criminal trial was swift, concluding with Turner's conviction and execution within hours. The rebellion was led by Nat Turner in Southampton County in August 1831. After his capture, Turner was quickly tried, found guilty, and sentenced to death. His assigned attorney, Thomas Gray, later published The Confessions of Nat Turner, which heavily influenced public memory of the event. Leading up to 1831, the institution of slavery was deeply entrenched, fueled by the cotton economy. Despite brutal repression and lack of rights, resistance was imminent. Nat Turner, a literate and religious enslaved man born in 1800, believed God had chosen him to lead a divine mission to end suffering. His conviction drove him to lead what became the most significant slave rebellion in American history. Turner cultivated a following by sharing his visions and interpretations of the Bible, which spoke to the injustices of slavery. He gathered trusted allies, believing celestial signs indicated the time for divine retribution against their oppressors had come. On August 21, 1831, Turner led about 70 enslaved conspirators in a rebellion in Southampton County. Armed with makeshift weapons, they first attacked the estate of Turner's owner, Joseph Travis, killing him, his family, and others. This marked the ferocity of the uprising. The rebellion quickly spread, lasting 4 days and causing widespread panic. White Virginians mobilized militias to suppress the uprising. In the aftermath, white Southerners executed captured rebels and implemented stricter slave control measures. The suppression was merciless. Turner evaded capture for 2 months, but was executed on November 11, 1831, along with dozens of followers. Retaliatory violence led to the killing of hundreds of suspected rebels and free African Americans, and civil liberties were suspended. Turner's rebellion became a powerful symbol of resistance. It intensified the abolitionist movement and the rift between North and South, contributing to the Civil War. His legacy continues to inspire discussions on civil rights and the fight against systemic racism. The trial opened on November 5, 1831, under a shadow of fear. It was a political trial aimed at crushing resistance. The court consisted of white male jurors, and Turner was represented by the assigned Thomas Ruffin, who later admitted he was merely an instrument of the law. Survivors testified, often using inflammatory details like child murder to sway the jury. Turner's confession, dictated to Thomas R. Gray, was used as damning evidence, though historians question its reliability due to Gray's editorial bias as a slaveholder. This image represents the Confessions of Nat Turner, as told to Thomas R. Gray, a critical document from the Southampton County trial. Thomas R. Gray presided over the trial, convicted Turner, and later published the Confessions. As a staunch slaveholder, the reliability of his published account is often questioned due to his clear bias. Thomas R. Gray, a former congressman and staunch slaveholder, presided over the trial and convicted Nat Turner. The reliability of his publication, The Confessions of Nat Turner, is highly questioned due to his inherent bias. Gray's Confessions mingled theology with violent commands and was edited by Gray, a slaveholder. Historians argue this version was used to scapegoat Turner for the failures of the entire slave system. Thomas R. Gray, a slaveholder, edited the Confessions, which led to historical bias. His version emphasized violence and served to scapegoat Turner, with historians questioning the document's overall reliability. We now turn to the perspective of the prosecution in the Nat Turner trial. The prosecution's theory focused on insurrection to crush organized resistance. They charged Turner with conspiracy and used his edited confession, alongside inflammatory witness accounts of murder, as key evidence. Prosecution witnesses, including survivors, provided testimony designed to incite fear, detailing accounts of child murder and noting Turner's use of a Bible and a silk handkerchief during the revolt. Thomas Porter's testimony described the brutal murder of children, aimed at inflaming the jury's emotions against Nat Turner. James W. Turner, an enslaved youth, provided pivotal testimony by linking Nat Turner to the first homicide, describing the event in detail and helping the prosecution frame Turner's motives as vengeful. Sarah Ann Turner's testimony described the attack as the devil's work, reinforcing the prosecution's narrative of moral panic and demonic influence, which resonated with the white jury. Deputy Sheriff John M. Kravitter's account provided a detailed forensic description of the scene, emphasizing, quote, blood-stained shirts and transforming the rebellion into a gruesome crime scene rather than a political statement. Mrs. Elizabeth Rice, the widow of one of the first victims, offered raw, emotional testimony, claiming to have heard a, quote, hissing voice attribute the murder to the Lord's will, suggesting satanic influence. Dr. William H. Waller, the medical examiner, testified that the wounds showed, quote, a level of intent. His forensic language validated the prosecution's claim that the killings were deliberate and pre-planned acts. Reverend John L. Greeley, a respected minister, framed the rebellion in theological terms, stating that it was a massacre sanctioned by Satan, which offered a moral justification for the jury's condemnation. Collectively, the witnesses constructed a narrative for the prosecution. Nat Turner, the charismatic preacher, orchestrated a violent, satanic uprising that threatened Southern society's very foundations. The witness list reveals the power dynamics, where white testimonies held inherent authority. The prosecution successfully framed Turner's religious language as demonic. This trial record served as a legal precedent for justifying draconian punishments in future slave insurrections. This scene offers an intermission before discussing the defense. Nat Turner was denied his choice of legal counsel. Thomas Ruffin, a judge and slaveholder, was assigned. Ruffin explicitly stated he was merely an instrument of the law, highlighting the severe bias within the legal system against Turner. Most witnesses held authority as white landowners. Black witnesses' accounts were filtered by the court, reinforcing the perceived civilized order of the white community. White testimony was prioritized in the oppressive legal structure. Turner had no true defense, as his assigned counsel, Thomas Ruffin, a judge and slaveholder, stated his role was to ensure punishment. This situation is a clear illustration of the legal system's deep-seated bias. Nat's brother, William C. Turner, testified to Nat's piety, claiming his actions were the result of a divine vision, not murderous intent. Although dismissed by the jury, this statement foreshadowed the defense's strategy. Betty Riddick, a free black neighbor, described Turner's prayerful sorrow, contrasting the prosecution's cold-blooded portrayal. However, the court quickly dismissed her testimony as, quote, inconsequential to the charge of murder. White overseer Samuel Green testified that Turner seemed, quote, haunted, suggesting a momentary loss of control. Freedman Jack Bell suggested Turner's sermons were misinterpreted, leading to an unintended violence. These tried to mitigate the death penalty. Mrs. Mary Collins, Turner's former mistress, testified that he was, quote, submissive. Her testimony underscored the double standard, where a description of a black man's compliance was interpreted as subservient deception. Co-defendant Thomas Liddell denied an explicit order to kill, claiming Turner spoke only of freedom for the soul. Community elder Hannah Miller offered a moral critique of slavery, which the clerk noted as irrelevant to charge. The defense witnesses, though dismissed at the time, provide a chronicle of resistance. Their testimonies highlight modern issues of jury bias, the tension between moral and legal narratives, and the interplay of faith and political action, planting seeds for the abolitionist movement. Nat Turner was convicted and sentenced to death. He was executed by hanging on November 11, 1831, serving as a stark public warning against any future acts of resistance or insurrection.